Welcome back to the Calling DFW. We are joined by Kel, Mr. Red Zone Rogue himself, jumping in here with us for round number 12. I think we're up to round 12 already.
I think we are up to round 12.
It's just constant games of flesh and blood. You can't go wrong with that. So whichever round we're in, I think it is 12, we're going to have a good time. We're going to enjoy ourselves. I think we're ready for the game right away to jump in.
It looks like it. I see it.
If we're ready, I'm ready.
I'm actually really excited to get into this.
Me too. This is going to be an Oldhim versus Oldhim again. I love that we're seeing the variety here. This is why you want to watch these draft games, because draft just allows so much variation. Watching another Oldhim v Oldhim matchup, and Oldhim is a very good draft hero, especially when you can like pick and choose exactly what you want your deck to look like.
I agree, and Oldhim is very interesting too, because we didn't see a ton of Oldhim day one. And now that we're in the, like you said, the draft portion, we get to see some of these other heroes shine a lot more than we did in the sealed. So
yeah, taking a look at the equipment here, we have Ragamuffin's hat on one side, which definitely less useful than that plume of Evergrowth.
Agreed.
But still has some fun tricks up its sleeve, and attack right away with a Titan's Fist coming across. I want to point out one player has Deep Blue, which is fantastic for Oldhim. The other has Coat of Frost, which still provides a lot of great value, and the Cracker Jacks can be absolutely huge if you picked up any of those thumps.
Both players actually do have a good old rotten old buckler as well. I actually love how their equipment loadout is completely different. Like there's no duplicates across the board. So
yeah, that should provide for an interesting game, right? It's gonna be a lot more varied if they're planning to use those equipment effectively.
How do you like this attack on turn one? Do you like attacking, or do you prefer to just kind of like Arsenal pass in a situation where you don't think you can push a lot of damage through?
I think if you're going to push something, pushing the weapon is far better as the turn one player, because you're not wasting any large attack on a turn where your opponent can basically just full block from hand and redraw. Yes, if you're playing a long game, a fatigue game, you may want them to full block and redraw because you have more cards at that point in your deck and they've used more cards. But, I mean, they can honestly do that on Titan's Fist. If you attack with Titan's Fist, they can sculpt their hand in any way, shape, or form they want. So if you're playing the long game, attacking with just a pure value weapon push is probably far better, unless you've got some crazy thing up your sleeve.
I think it's an absolutely great call. Push a little bit of damage, and you don't really use that many cards from your deck.
Entwine Earth Fused coming across for 8. The casual 8.
Casual 8. It's a pretty good number here. Pretty threatening attack. So this is one of those situations where, you are going to have to use some resources from hand. You are going to have to block it out. And it looks like it's going to be blocking for
just blocks for 6 here. Yeah, takes 2 down to 18. So 18 plays 19. We did see that a Summerwood Shelter was shown. And most likely you Arsenal that Summerwood Shelter, depending on what the other card is, because Summerwood Shelter is an easy card to get out of Arsenal. So you don't want something to get stuck down in there, and getting the ability basically to just drop extra defense on a choice card at any moment is a great choice to put that Summerwood Shelter down in there.
And here we have second verse, same as the first, coming in with the hammer.
And so 2 in a row. It could be in a situation where, okay, I block with 2 cards from hand. My options are pretty limited, and obviously he pitched a blue Strength of Sequoia. That leaves 1 card in hand, which he could just be content to Arsenal. It could also be that this is just his game plan anyway. To just play super long game because maybe he stacked his deck with more attacks or more cards in general.
And we definitely have seen that kind of strategy come out from a lot of these Briar matches, or these Oldhim matches actually, where we actually go to fatigue, the decks do run out, and we see these very, very long matches, unlike Briar.
That's right. Drawing up and passing on over to Jeremy's side of things. He blocked with a blue Emerging Avalanche. And it's interesting to see these decks compositions. Is he going to jam down a red Emerging Avalanche? I think he is.
I think that's a good call, yeah.
Definitely thinking about it, and that's a great setup card, especially if you have the ability to fuse it. If you do have the ability to fuse it, then you're going to give a Frostbite token automatically over onto Nam's side of things.
Definitely being able to set up for a really, really big turn where you can actually push some damage through, get through the blocking side, and kind of further your game plan.
And he is going to fuse. He's fusing with an Icy Encounter. It's interesting because he could have chosen to play the Icy Encounter, but instead he's just waiting until a later turn, playing down the Emerging Avalanche. It's just an Emerging Avalanche blue, so it does provide a buff.
It will give a +1 buff on his next turn.
It will be a buff, so if he does draw into a thump, then he is able to string those together and give that thump dominate and that amazing discard a card ability. Pitching here, wow, interesting pitch.
Good.
So pitching 4, it looks
Decent
like.
amount, yeah.
Got to play.
Ooh.
Oh, look at this.
This is a
Tear Asunder.
Tear Asunder. This is a spicy card.
Tear Asunder
love-
plus the Titan's Fist.
I love it on the hammer. I really, really love Tear Asunder on the hammer. So this is going to present a pretty big threat and a really, really good on-hit effect, where if it actually hits, it's going to force the opponent to discard 2 cards. And so if you're Jeromy here, you're like, okay, this is big. But he does have that Summerwood Shelter that we saw earlier. So he is prepared to deal with this.
It is also giving Dominate as well, which is fantastic. So he's going to jam down a 2-block here and follow that up by pitching to prevent – no, I think it's an Earth. Yeah, it's an Earth. So it is going to prevent the next 2 damage that he would take. This would just block 4 of the attack.
I think so.
And I think from that point, he'd be safe. It's interesting because I thought a 2-block plus the buff on Tear Asunder would push that weapon up higher, but perhaps he didn't actually have a 3-cost card in his pitch to push the Titan's Fist up even more. So if it was just a 4-attack Titan's Fist, then he just gets out of it scot-free by pitching an Earth card.
And we do have a +1 on this icy encounter from the emerging Avalanche.
And this is a fine play that was actually open knowledge. You could have just played this icy encounter and been content with it. The perhaps better play was playing a red thump if you had the resources for it, but we knew the icy encounter was a possibility, and this pushes 7, and if it hits, create a frostbite. Still a great attack to have hit.
Oh yeah. I mean, you love it. 7's a great number. It's a great breakpoint card, a great breakpoint number in terms of cards that block. Especially even if you're going up against Guardian. Ooh, we have a defense reaction.
Yeah, playing Turn Timber from Arsenal and revealing the Earth card, which does a great job of blocking a large... Well, let's see. It would block 6, right?
Yeah.
Block 6. And then I believe he most likely pitched there at the end to prevent damage with Oldhim's ability, I
think that's exactly what he did.
Okay.
And here we have another just swing with the hammer.
Yeah, and this is swinging for 3 because Entwine Ice does not cost 3 or greater. And so just coming across for 3, saying, I'm content to play the long game. You can drop a card from your hand, or you can take 3 damage. Either way, I get value, and you lose a card or lose some life.
And I think at this point, we can kind of just kick back a little bit, maybe relax, because we know this is going to be a long game.
Okay, I'm doing that. If you said I can kick back and relax, I will do that now.
And now is a good time to start paying attention to the cards that the players pitch, because we're definitely going to see these again. We're definitely going to see these cards again.
Yeah, these are cards that will cycle at least one time, if not more. If they're both content to play a longer game and not try to put aggression on and wait for their large attacks, then we definitely want to start tracking as the opponent. You want to track what your opponent is pitching down to the bottom of their deck, because they might be stacking up something that you'd have to prepare for.
100%. And it's also relevant to know just how much they're blocking, because the cards that they block with, they're not going to see again, barring some sort of card that lets you get them back.
That's right. I mean, if you're playing So tomorrow, you can go and fetch them. If you have Plume of Evergrowth, you can go and fetch them. But otherwise, you're not really going to see those cards ever again, as per the rules of Flesh and Blood. There we did see no block from hand on Jeremy's side of things.
It's actually very interesting. We've seen a lot of blocks here, which tells me that Jeromy might have a pretty spicy hand.
He may actually be trying to push one of his larger attacks on this turn and see if he can sneak over some damage or at least force some cards out of hand. Pitching a red thump, and that's one of those cards you want to see that. He pitched a red thump and a red weave ice back-to-back. Those are cards to string together.
Yes, those are going to be pretty good, like almost game-ending kind of cards here.
Yeah, Weave Ice in the future can give that thump +3, and you can gain Dominate from giving that thump attack higher than its base. So in a future scenario, you can draw those plus perhaps pitch 2 blues on this coming turn, or a blue this turn, a blue next turn, and you can set up a 4-card hand wherein you can pay for the thump.
100%. And so here we have just another attack with the hammer. I think we're going to see this a lot. We've already seen it a lot. I think we're going to continue to see it a lot.
Nom attacks with the hammer for 3.
Yep, just attacking with the hammer.
Write it down, everyone. Let's keep a track. Attacking for 3 with the hammer.
And so it's going to be very interesting to see if Jeromy decides to block this one again. He ended up taking the last one, and he's really in the tank about it. I guess this is a thing you want to consider, right? Do I want to block heavily? Do I want to lose these cards as resources? Do I want to use my life as a resource?
And
or
oftentimes, in a scenario like this, if you've put enough Earth cards in your deck, then it may be preferable to take 1 point of damage and use Oldhim's defense reaction ability because you're not losing a card in a fatigue scenario. But you don't want that life disparity to get too far. We saw that in the previous Oldhim mirror where one player was able to work their life to 12 and while the other player was at 6. And that far
oh,
life
yeah.
disparity basically made it to where even if you're, the player that was at 6 did mount a huge attack on a turn, you can still just take it because pushing for 12 generally a little bit more difficult late game because you've burned through a lot of those threats.
Yeah, and here we have a really big setup card with a red Strength of Sequoia.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it was fused, so he's not going to get that Seismic Surge token, but it will give a +3 to the next attack on his following turn.
Yeah, so in this kind of stage, you basically just want to protect your hand, protect your life total, pitch a blue, and play a large attack that'll get even larger with strength.
And this is a good time for the opponent to get aggressive, too, and try to strip as many cards from your hand as possible.
Yeah, if you can mount something very large, this is a great way to do that. Playing a Mulch from Arsenal, if you fuse it, then you do get that fuse effect of forcing the card out of the arsenal. But it doesn't look like he's showing a fuse. So this would just be coming for a large number. I think it's 8
Yeah,
on red.
red Mulch is 8.
Yeah.
So I think that's exactly what he wants to do, just to try to strip as many cards as he can from Jeremy's hand so he can't have this really, really big turn.
Yeah.
Or force him to take a lot of damage. And like you said, you really don't want to have that life disparity.
Yeah, it's an awkward moment because we do see there's a Turn Timber blue in hand, and so the Turn Timber blue blocks for 4, but you have to pay for it, so that loses you 2 cards from hand, and it doesn't even really block effectively. Oh, it looks like there's an Evergreen. He's going to do the Weave Earth and finally use the yellow Symbol Shelter he's been holding this whole time, which is probably the right play here because it does provide him the ability to use the Strength of Sequoia effectively and arsenal the blue Turn Timber while play a big attack, of course.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what you want to do.
I think he has a blue Evergreen in hand, so he could just slam down the Evergreen for 5 plus the 3 is 8. Now he's going to pitch the Turn Timber.
All right, yeah, so we see a pitch on the Turn Timber.
Oh, no, it was an Entangle the whole time and show the Evergreen.
Using the Entangle.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really seen Entangle fused a lot this weekend, but it's a very interesting card because if you fuse it, it has an on-hit effect of debilitating your opponent's next attack.
Yeah.
I believe it's a -2 to their next attack.
It is a -2, and so he's fused this, and normally the blue Entangle only pushes for 5, but because it red Strength of Sequoia popped on this turn, it's going to push 8, and it's going to, if it hits, push the attack value down significantly for 2, right? 2 less. And then it allows him to arsenal the Evergreen that he could have also played. The Evergreen was going to come for 7 plus 3 for 10, but instead you can play a longer game like he's going to do, Arsenal and Evergreen, and then play that from Arsenal and bottom it.
Yeah, and I think that the Strength of the Sequoia really showed its strength that turn, making a card that was otherwise maybe not as threatening into a fairly threatening card and forcing his opponent to actually use his buckler.
Yeah, and here we see in hand on Jeremy's side of things, we have a Thump. It looks like a blue Thump and an Endless Winter. Okay, so Jeremy was in the pod that I watched, and I watched this Endless Winter get passed about 3 times.
Really?
So it got passed by 3 different players who were clearly not going to play Oldhim, and it fell into his lap. I'm pretty sure this is the same one.
So here we have another Entangle. This is a red Entangle. I don't remember. I didn't catch it. Was this one fused or not?
I don't recall, but I do believe that this attack would be reduced because I think Nam took damage. From the Entangle.
I think you are correct.
Nevertheless, whether or not he fused this and whether or not it is reduced, it is still producing a fairly large threat that you have to consider. And in double blocking like it looks like he's about to do, you're basically saying that I'm probably not going to play the Endless Winter because the Endless Winter costs 4, and you do need resources.
4 is such an awkward pitch value.
In Limited, it is. It definitely is in Limited. When you can in Constructed pitch for the creation of like a Seismic Surge off of your Tectonic Plating, and then use the leftover resources to help pay the cost of something like Endless Winter, it's perfect. But it's a little bit more tricky and limited.
So Jeremy's going to go down to 10. He's going to pitch that Thump we talked about and play this Evergreen from his arsenal.
Yeah.
Since he did get hit, it looks like it was
2,
fused.
yep.
So it's only coming in for
Comes
for
across for
5.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically at that point it's basically a blue evergreen,
Yeah.
which is funny.
Yeah.
So he blocks 3, takes 2. I'm gonna sink that blue thump down to the bottom of the deck, and again, you want to keep track. If your deck is about 30 cards, then you're basically looking at what, like 6 turns before you see those couple of cards that you pitched in order with the thump and the ice quake.
And if you're Nom here, you gotta be feeling pretty good, right? You have a decent life lead, and you've done a really good job of not using a ton of your resources, just coming in with your hammer over and over again.
Yeah.
If I'm him just sitting there, I'm feeling pretty good.
You can feel more comfortable with this life disparity. It could all evaporate very quickly
That's
if you
true.
see a dominated glacial footsteps, though.
That's
So
very true.
you can never really be too comfortable. I mean, if you could push his life total a little lower and stay at 18, you know, on your next turn, then you might start feeling a lot more like you have this game more in the bag than less. But you have to always respect dominate in Oldhim and
yeah.
respect some of these tricks that Oldhim can do with his long game life. So look, he's pitching a yellow glacial and a blue snow under to play the endless winter, not fusing. So this is just coming across, I believe, for 7.
And this is a majestic card, so it's not
Or
a
maybe
card.
8,
It's
perhaps
not a
8.
card that you see often in limited. And I do believe it is.
Endless winter coming across, and it is a
do believe it is
sizable
coming in for 8.
sizable threat that you just do have to think about whether or not how much damage you can take. Because this, if you just take all of this, this puts you both even, and it puts you both into very scary territory of who's going to take you know, that dominated attack first.
It's actually a very interesting thing to think about. Like, you could take the 8 and go to 10, like you said, become even, and then maybe follow that up with a really nice turn of your own. Or, like this, you could just heavily block it.
Yep, a 3-card block makes a ton of sense, blocking exactly 8. 2 plus 3 plus 3 on the block there, and content to maybe pitch away the card and attack with the weapon again.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
Maintain the disparity, start ripping cards. The lower Jeremy's life total goes, the more incentivized he is and the more required it is for him to block these Titan's Fist attacks.
Yeah.
So he's whittling him down slowly but surely, and now Titan's Fist is really going to start putting in work, especially if you pitch 3-cost cards alongside of this. It pushes that breakpoint to 4.
This Titan's Fist is definitely putting in work.
Yeah.
This match.
So
it
let's
looks
see.
like he's considering blocking for 3 here.
Yeah, this blocking with a mulch would just block this card out. It'd block the damage out. You'd be comfortable blocking here.
And once again, keep in mind, every single card that Jeromy has to block with is a card that we will not see again. So it just furthers the late game plan that Nam is trying to go for.
Pitching an Earth card to prevent extra damage is intriguing. Pitching that away.
Yeah.
Now, the nice thing about doing that is it may not actually prevent any damage, but it cycles your hand. It cycles your card. So you push that card to the bottom of the deck, you draw more cards. Maybe it's a card you don't care about. It was like a Blue Autumn's Touch. And you just get to sculpt your hand even more. It's something that we haven't seen a lot of the players do too much, and it's something that perhaps they should explore more in that it allows you to set your hands up and dig harder for those combo turns.
That actually is a very good point.
Yeah.
A very good point, and a great thing to think about when you're especially thinking about like late game and these Oldhim mirrors. Yeah, so we have another attack with the hammer. We've seen this, the last couple turns have been very similar. Attack with the hammer, block with 3 block card. Attack with the hammer, block with 3 block card. And I think we may see something similar here.
I think at this point, Jeremy's looking through his deck to try and count how many threats he's burned through, how many threats he's used, how many threats he's seen cycle through, because this could be the hand that draws into Red Thump, Red Weave Earth, and that neither of those cards you want to get rid of, because you do need a blue, or 2 blues, I should say, alongside of the Thump. Generally not 2 blues, but two cards to pitch to pay for the Thump. So he may just take this, and this may be the hand where he goes Weave Earth into Dominated Thump so that you can try to steal some life total back and some tempo back, because you need it as you just dropped to 7.
Yeah, just straight up took it. And I think you're 100% correct. I think this is the point where we start seeing the second cycle of the deck.
Yep, and there's the Red Weave Earth, and we see perhaps the Red Thump coming down. Yep, double pitch, the Icy Encounter, and the Autumn's Touch. We have the Red
Spot
Thump.
on.
So this comes across for 9 dominated, and if it hits, your opponent has to discard a card. This will hit unless there's a defense reaction in play somewhere under that arsenal, perhaps. He's going to block 3 here. Maybe he can Summerwood Shelter. I think you could Summerwood Shelter to make it a little easier. He can obviously Oldhim up. There's the Summerwood Shelter.
Yep.
This is going to block 3 and then block 4. Perhaps blocked it all the way out.
This is not what you want to see if you're Jeromy, by the way.
But that's the kind of thing you have to set up to try and take some tempo back. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work out because Nam was just totally ready with the red Summerwood Shelter in the arsenal and the block from hand, and perhaps even using the Oldhim effect.
I mean, I got to say, Nam is playing a fantastic control game here. He's setting things up perfectly, waiting for these big attacks. I think he's doing an absolutely fantastic job.
He most likely saw that pitch happen. Yeah. Oh, he pitched a red Thump alongside of a red Weaver, so I have to calculate and find a way to stop 9. Okay, well, I have a red Summerwood Shelter. That'll up something by 4. I can block with a 3 block in that moment. That will block 3, and so together that makes 7. So now all I need is an Earth card to pitch, and on that turn, with those 3 cards, I will be able to block that turn out, and he can't take my tempo.
Yeah. We do still see a lot of equipment on both sides of the field, and I think we'll very likely see these equipment come into play in the next several turns.
I think there's definitely a moment here. This is a great attack, by the way, coming from the arsenal. That red Evergreen he pitched earlier, coming for 7, sinking to the bottom of the deck. Actually, I think he attacked with it earlier, and then it sank to the bottom of the deck already.
He did, yes.
Yeah, so this does provide a second set of pressure on a second turn, I should say, in a row of pressure on the opponent. So you're trying what you can do to take that tempo. Maybe you even consider popping like a Coat of Frost on this turn, just to give even more possible swing back in your favor. So he's going to double block here.
A double block.
Taking 1, dropping to 17. It's just such a life disparity. You're at 10 life less than your opponent.
Yeah, and this is what you mentioned before, and what we saw in another game today already. This life disparity is, it's. I mean, obviously it's rough, right? You have a 10-point life disparity, but it makes every single attack that Nam throws now that much more threatening.
Yes, and here we see him throw another attack, Entwine Earth Red, so he has another threat coming for, I think it says 8. Did he fuse it?
If he fuse it, it is 8. Otherwise, it is
6,
it's
I
6.
believe. Correct us if we're wrong.
Yes, and this is a turn where Jeromy's got to consider, like, do I want to use my buckler here? This is it's very, very tricky. If you take a look at Jeromy's deck, it's not looking robust, I would say.
No,
definitely not looking robust. Where Nam's deck is looking pretty good.
The tempo and the control of this game is clearly on Nam's side of things, and I don't know what can be done to pull this disparity back in Jeromy's favor.
This is Flesh and Blood, so you're never out of it. But it is dire straits, I would say, for Jeromy.
Both players playing incredibly well. Nam has this dialed in.
Oh, for sure. I mean, both players had to play exceptionally well to get to where they are right now.
Yes. Both players sitting at 9-2. The winner of this will move to 10-2, feeling perhaps much more comfortable, depending on when those losses came and how the first round went, trying to move themselves into a top 8 scenario and ensuring yourself a pretty large prize.
Yes. Yes. I mean, just getting into the top 8 at all is fantastic.
It's a feat in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, top 8 alone gets you a gold cold foil, which is, amazing.
Pushing the Titan's Fist and blocking for 3. You did push 4 there, so you do leak a point. So you are clawing your way back in. But at this point, your deck, it's just looking very, very lean. What, 6 cards perhaps?
Yeah, it's
7 in circulation total.
Very, very slim pickings here. Where Nam's deck is, like I said, looking pretty robust. You got to feel more comfortable, blocking out a lot more here, and you have your life as a resource. You have your deck as a resource. And
creating a seismic surge token off of the So Tomorrow reveal, maybe setting up a larger scale attack next turn. Either way, you're probably content to, I was going to say, after you play this down Titan's Fist and try to, launch a dominated attack that is buffed up a little bit with that Strength of Sequoia.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really threatening turn, having this amazing setup, because even if the attack doesn't finish the job, and kill the opponent, it's going to force them to block with a lot of cards in their hand. And when they only have about 7 cards floating around, it's very, very relevant. Every single one of these cards is a big deal for Jeromy.
Yeah, the threat is going to be basically just lights out, no matter what kind of comes down. As long as there is a threat that is drawn and played, that threat is likely going to be lights out. If it can push some extra damage over the top, or if it can just steal the last couple of threats out of the deck.
And what's extra threatening is Jeromy likely won't be able to put enough pressure that he would like to do to make that Strength of Sequoia, not worth it. Because now I'm sitting at a life total where he's just like, whatever you do, I could just take it. Like, I don't even need to worry about having
And he does at least do this. This is smart. He uses the Coat of Frost to counteract the Seismic Surge token, because basically the Frostbite will force one of the like cards or activated abilities to cost 1 extra. The Seismic Surge makes the attack cost 1 less, so they kind of balance each other out. He is going to destroy the Cracker Jacks and push an Icy Encounter for 7 here, which does also provide the possibility of another Frostbite. So this is what you were talking about, trying to put that pressure on to slow down a big attack, but it's really sort of like a last gasp kind of thing when your deck is this low.
Yeah. Yeah, and playing this card, playing the Icy Encounter too, is like, it's another card that he's just not going to see again. So exactly what you said. This is the last gasp. It's a decently threatening attack, right? I think Nom's very much considering, maybe do I want to block this out and prevent getting a Frostbite?
Well, your options here are, triple block with cards from hand, and then if you have an attack action in your arsenal, then you keep a blue in hand and pitch that to play the attack. That can benefit from the Strength of Sequoia, but you may just straight up abandon the idea of getting value off Strength and value off of the Seismic Surge and just say, okay, you put some pressure on, that's fine. I'm at like 15. I'm gonna pitch 2 cards and still attack you with the hammer. It could be something as simple as that.
So Strength pops, Seismic Surge pops. We got a +1 to his next attack.
Double pitch, and is he gonna just hammer? He's just gonna hammer. Yep, that's what I thought.
It's hammer time.
I was like, you may just be so content to go, okay, that was pretty good. Hammer.
The best part is this little innocuous hammer is still very, very threatening.
It attacks for 4 here because he does pitch a 3-cost card and break ground, but just like you can continue to block. You only have a few cards left. We're gonna string those cards out of your hand and into your graveyard, and then this 4-attack hammer. It's going to hit you a few times.
He does have a card in Arsenal. Does have the Rotten Old Buckler.
Yeah, that card in Arsenal has been there for a long time. I'm curious at what that card is. I wonder if we went back, if we could actually tell what card was Arsenal prior. Oh, just kidding. It's a Summerwood Shelter. Hey, I found out. It was a Summerwood Shelter.
We've seen a lot of Summerwood Shelters, actually.
Well, which speaks to the card's playability.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Perhaps there's people that thought that Summerwood Shelter was less than good.
I think I definitely underrated it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
It is strange because it doesn't block itself, and it feels a lot like Reinforce the Line.
Yeah, it does, actually.
Reinforce the Line. It feels a lot like that card, and Reinforce the Line was just not played. But this Summerwood Shelter, definitely more playable than Reinforce the Line. And look at this. There's the red thump. Maybe he wanted to set that up on a previous turn and try to get the value out of that. But instead, you're just like, well, I can just attack you a few more times.
Yeah, and when you have a deck size like Nom's here, it's like you're very content to do this kind of stuff. Just kind of block it out.
Yeah, incredibly healthy. And the reason it's so healthy is because he's basically just spent the entire time pitching and attacking with basically an infinite weapon, right? That's like one of the permanent items in the game is your weapon. And if you can get incremental value over time just using weapon attack after weapon attack after weapon attack, then you can find ways to grind these games out.
I honestly think the real star of this match, as far as cards are concerned, is the Titan's Fist. The Titan's Fist has put so much work in, and here we see it again.
And believe it or not, the Titan's Fist is actually shown to close out multiple games in this scenario in this mirror, which is really, really surprising to me because, like we saw in the previous Oldhim mirror, a Titan's Fist versus a Winter's Wail, and with just constant value getting out of that weapon and just constant attacking and cycling your deck, you just get there, and that's exactly what he did. He just got there in the end. You just get him with the Titan's Fist over and over. You wait until they run out of threats, or in this case, run out of cards, and then you just drop the big attack on him. And that's exactly what we saw there. All he needed after he kind of pulled all those cards from the deck and from the hand is just one big attack to finish the game.
Yeah, and I mean that's how you want to do it, I guess.
Yep, that's how he did it, right?
And with some showmanship.
Finishing it out. So that takes us into a short break. We're going to jump to a short break, set up the next game for you. So don't go too far. Give us a couple of minutes to set that up, grab a snack, and we'll see you back here for more Flesh and Blood.